So what I wanted to, let's say, bring when we were coming to California, and this is our second time, but really first time in terms of actually being able to speak and relate, is that if we go to the core of all teachings, absolutely all, regardless of its origin, what we find, there is a remarkable similarity. And that is that the true spiritual teaching is all about living this truth, embodying it, and sharing it and resonating it through all our pores, through all our relationships, through all our interactions. Basically, it's not about, let's say, forgetting who we are in order to remember who we truly are, but more so, realigning that seeming discrepancy that took place. And this is what I've been trying to say in various ways, from various approaches, from various points of view, that the notion of non-self is being poorly understood. Poorly understood and poorly, therefore, implemented. And as a result, what we're striving for could be unattainable. Because up until we are embodied in this physical form, we have nowhere to hide. We cannot hide in the absolute, or Brahman, or whatever we might call it, the self. Because it is the self that is expressing itself through this very body. So this, let's say, if one wants to strip it down, this would be the message to share. And because of that, a lot of questions come, a lot of questions that needs to be readjusted, a lot of, let's say, aspects within this whole spiritual unfoldment need to be adjusted. And this is precisely where I feel is the need of time. Because on one hand, there is this quickening, there's this speeding up of everything. And on the other hand, if the spirituality is being today utilized only in a way of a kind of escapism, a kind of getting away, like running away from the pressing issues of our time, that spirituality simply an outlived one. It does not serve us at all. It does not position us, it does not give us the right ground to act. And since if some of you are familiar with the term, the field of action, or Dharma otherwise, which runs as the, let's say, leitmotif of all spiritual approaches, when the field of action becomes wobbly, right? The field of action becomes uncertain, when there are certain tendencies that are conflicting, then that field of action has been violated, and it needs to be brought back to its original state of harmony. So this is the leitmotif of all spiritual teachings, absolutely with no exception. When Dharma is in decay, I reincarnate myself over and over again, or generation, like epoch after the epoch. This is what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita. When Dharma is in decay, it is the time, the moment in time, when the field of action is so perturbed that nobody knows what is the right action as opposed to what is the harmful action. Therefore, let's say that what we just said was the main or the core message. What inevitably comes out of this is that the process of self-realization here is suddenly viewed from a very different perspective. It is viewed here not from the perspective of existential kind of like narcissistic adolescent desire for self-gratification in whatever secret way that might happen. But it is the conscious act of offering oneself into that process, because there is, let's say, a deep understanding that we don't have another choice as a collective. So that self-realization is suddenly here being viewed not as a, how am I doing with that? When is it going to happen to me? I want to realize myself. But it's to view immediately, even from that moment of that realization, that none of these self-realizations are separate from the overall process. Because with every awakening, with every shift in perception, with every true transformation, the field becomes lighter, it becomes enlivened. And consciousness can rest and do its work. And consciousness can create a ground so that for the emergence of a new consciousness. This is what really a true meaning of the shift, the paradigm or new paradigm. New paradigm cannot be born on the level of the mind, that something is outlived and we understand that we can no longer apply what worked for us. It can only come from that field of all potentialities when it is literally not known, when everything is uncertain, This is when that necessity arises more acutely than ever. Because for precise reason that uncertainty principle, even the scientists talk about it. So if in view of all that, we view this world as, let's say, a passing phenomena, an illusion, something not important, this planet as a speck of dust, this human body as a nonsense, this mind as just an idea, like a kind of appearance in consciousness. There is always a danger that we are missing what this process is all about. And this process really is about gradual alignment of that which is considered to be individual expression of consciousness with that which is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. Casually, I speak of it like another face of Shiva, second face of Shiva. Don't look for the scriptural references, because Shiva, according to Shaivism, has 5 faces, which all has its connections to the elements, and it has to do with the modes of expression. But I'm speaking here of that sacred individuality, where consciousness expressing itself in a unique way. It never makes photocopies of itself. And each and every one of us is that unique expression of consciousness. The beauty of it is that within that uniqueness, we all share the same consciousness. So it's not about forgetting who we are. It's not about disregarding this individuality. It's not about trying to kill the mind or the ego with that, but incorporating all this and realigning, continuously realigning, tuning in. That's what Tantra really means. I keep saying that it's tuning. Like when an instrument came out of tune, it cannot play melody, it cannot play music. No matter how skillful is the pianist, it will be, it's like all this will be, there will be a discord, no matter how expensive is the violin, Stradivarius, what have you. If you haven't tuned the strings on that Strad, no matter how, like 50 grand at the auction, complete waste of money. Every tool needs to be tuned. In my country, they still have that dutar, which is actually only 2 strings. But the skillful tuning, and then obviously handling allows music to come out. And human physiology is precisely that. It's precisely that. Even when we look at the anatomy, if we look at our anatomy, if we look at the way our physical anatomy and spiritual anatomy is made, it's a beautiful musical tool, it's a beautiful musical instrument. When our vibrations, simply the vibrations that of each and every note within this physical reality, within this, and when I say physical, it's greater than just the tissues and organs of the body. When that vibrates with universal vibrations, then harmony prevails even in the midst of disharmony. Because here, disharmony has a qualitatively different, suddenly, experience. Just watch my body and position your awareness on your heart. Just position your awareness right in your heart, but at the same time, still behold me. Bring your inner awareness at the heart and look at me. Even that gesture corresponds with certain vibration, you know, or something like that, like literally, you know, just like you can literally clench your fist and open it. So what is this process then? It's not just about unclenching the fist of the heart to its fuller expansion, but a realization that consciousness is continuously expanding and continuously contracting. We have to understand that this is the part of that. Without this, there is no that. So this is why we spend years and years on the mat, meditating, experiencing, and often we're waiting for that complete perfection. You know, we want to abide in bliss, in Satchitananda, when nothing can touch us in this world. But that is an idea. It is not how it actually functions. Embracing ourselves, how we are, with all our idiosyncrasies and conflicts, it's part of opening up to greater reality of who we are. Hence, consciousness is not just it's not enough to say that ignorance is a contracted state of consciousness and self-realization is an expansive state of consciousness or expanded state of consciousness. It's not correct to say that. It is rather what the self-realization is about. It's realization that this expansion and contraction takes place at the level of a spiritual heart at all times. It takes place at every moment in time, throughout our daily activity, throughout the daily, throughout the shifts of consciousness that we're experiencing, waking, dreaming, deep sleep. It is more natural that in meditation, during the retreats, we feel this expansiveness. We feel this sense of all-embracing, very beautiful, embalming quality. But then we're thrown in the midst, in the thick of life, in our day-to-day interactions. And suddenly we feel like, oh, I cannot carry these vibrations with me. Suddenly this heart cannot be opened enough. Just like a couple of nights ago, we had this exchange with someone who was saying to me, during the retreats I have no problem in being in bliss. The problem comes when I come back home. When I come back home, I feel fear, I feel contraction. But that contraction is not separate from consciousness, even in its expansive state. And that where Tantra is so succulent, or succulently direct about. This is precisely why such teachings as Kashmir Shaivism have been brewed for a very long time, for centuries, and remain the last secret that came from India, which Rabindranath Tagore named as culmination of everything that happened in India for the past several thousand years. Just to impress you with something, renunciation is not possible in Kashmir Shaivism. It's an oxymoron. You can't renounce yourself because the self is real. This self, each with all attributes, names and forms, is not considered to be some kind of Maya, delusion, illusion, all in the mind. It is an expression of Shakti. It is energetic expression of consciousness. It's not only not to be ashamed of, it's to embrace, it's to nourish and cherish. So renunciation, running naked in India, in Kashmir Shaivism, it's incompatible. And for that reason it is called the householder religion, the householder path. Why? Because there is nothing that is not pure awareness according to that, let's say, philosophical system that soaked in everything that was present in India, absolutely everything. Somewhere around, the scholars say, between 4th and 10th century. By 10th century, most important scriptures of Kashmir Shaivism were formulated. But we're not here to, I'm not here to take you to the study of philosophy. And I love that I receive emails now. Igor, could you please send me a link, Kashmir Shaivism for dummies? Because to make my job easier. Unfortunately, I haven't yet found such link. It is a profound philosophy. It is profound in every respect, and if any one of you have ever delved into Indian philosophy and knows how rich, how multi-layered and profoundly complex Indian philosophy is, then compared to Kashmir Shaivism offers even more in depth. And I really, really resonate with those teachers who said that in the past that there will come a time in science when Kashmir Shaivism will be studied by most progressive scientists and most progressive scientific investigations precisely for its very scientific approaches. Because let's say that doctrine of vibration, which is known as Spanda, it views the whole universe as vibrating, reverberating stream, as vibrating reality. And as we know, the superstring theories and all these theories of that have appeared sometimes around mid-90s of the end of the 20th century, they are still considered to be the latest word in modern science. That everything is indeed reverberates, everything connects everything else. There is nothing that not affects the greater.